What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to Session 2 of my 2025 Central Division Driver School and Double Divisional from Blackhawk Farms. I apologize for the delay in getting this video posted. Life got a little bit crazy. I was actually back at Blackhawk Farms for the Mark Amenda Majors, crewing for the always hilarious and fun to talk with Brian Stachinski. Much thanks to him for letting my dad come out and play race cars. My usual team that I work with, or we work with I should say, had to pull out of the race at the last minute just because of life and work at the shop. So he very graciously had us come in and help him shake down his car and get him ready to run and rock for the race, and then had us for the race. Unfortunately, I got a cold Friday night into Saturday, and so was working at reduced capacity for Saturday and Sunday's races, but we got through it. Found some issues on his car. We were able to help him work through it and keep him on track. So with that being said, we are rolling out of False Grid down pit lane here. This is the first session that we have non-school cars on track with us. So for the purposes of this weekend, it was all surfs, Gen 3 surfs and then Gen 2 surfs. Had quite a few of them out on track with us for each session. Got to really figure out how to manage traffic. In the first session, I only had the one car that really passed me. Going forward here in the rest of the sessions, you will see a lot more cars passing me, and having to manage that traffic and figure out just where to put the car throughout the session. So with that being said, I am going to shut up for a little bit here and let you guys enjoy this first session. As you can see, corner stations are all white flags again, just letting us know where they're at, making sure we're paying attention. And yeah, I will let you get to it. So coming up here, you can see I've got a slow-moving Surf 3 ahead of me. This is not a norm to be catching a Surf 3. If I remember correctly, this car was breaking in a new engine, or this might be a Gen 2 Surf, I can't quite remember. But this car, I believe, was breaking in an engine, which is why he was kind of surging and slow and then fast. So coming up here, you'll see right here, he gives me the point by to go ahead and move on by, which again is not normal for a V to pass a Surf like that. You will also notice here, steering wheel is still not quite straight. I had thought that I had gotten it straightened out on the steering shaft, but didn't quite get there. And of course, I don't really notice it until I am out on track. So, when I'm driving through the paddock, going down out of where going down to false grid, etc. It's kind of constantly turning, so you don't really know for sure where your steering wheel's at. And then going down the pit lane at the start of the session is where I realize, oh crap, my steering wheel is off center again. So that's always fun. So you can see here, pretty aggressive with blue flags, making sure we're getting them pretty early. For the corner workers, it was actually kind of easy because, again, I'm the only V out on track, and there were only 2 open wheel cars in our group. There was me and an FF. There was a student in a surf, but he was a pretty distinct number. You can see there's slight little oversteer as I come out of turn 6 there. There's that 58 surf that I passed earlier. He's getting up to speed. We were on old tires here, and this was the first session that I was actually starting to push. Kind of get up on the top of the gearing, brake a little bit later into the corners, get on the gas a little bit sooner, etc. Coming through the start-finish line here, you can see the white flag, contradictory to a normal, which you would think it would be. That is not last lap. That is slow safety vehicle up ahead, which for me was kind of tricky because I had as you can see, surf that passed me on the inside of 1, and that is completely legal because it's not a full course yellow. There's nothing that says you can't pass there, but it was definitely an interesting decision on their part from my perspective, knowing that there was a safety vehicle up ahead, and it's also a Gen 2 surf, if I remember correctly on that one, and he is not that much faster than a V, if it is in fact a Gen 2 surf. I can't remember off the top of my head, but then again, you can see here, like, he's not really pulling away from me like you would expect him to, and I can also, in a sense, outbrake him going into the corners, which is also interesting at times during the sessions. So coming up here into turn 1, you can see they do have a standing yellow. So that's the safety truck is still on course. Technically, because he's on the curbing, he is offline or off track, which means he is not obstructing the normal, race surface, which is why it is a standing yellow, not a waving yellow. If the track surface was obstructed, it would be a waving yellow. Again, interesting call in terms of Station 1 and control. Normally, I would have expected that to be a waving still, because we do tend to use that curbing from time to time. But again, I've never flagged, so I leave it up to their experience, and I just, I make sure I'm following and paying attention to the flags that they're giving me. Also of note here, of course, is I am now starting to catch up this surf a little bit here in certain corners, and then he'll kind of power away, and then I'll catch back up, which, as a first-time driver, first time being out on track with the surfs, did get a little confusing at times, not knowing if he had a problem or if he was just kind of going through the paces or what have you, because when you do get in the draft with them, it is a noticeable difference in the car. It's not like a dramatic change in speed, but there is a noticeable difference in just how the car performs and the way it handles when you are tucked in behind them. Coming through here, just being a little bit careful. Again, I believe this is the one, can't tell the number, but I believe this is another one that was breaking in an engine. So he was a little bit off pace, and from the corner worker's side, these surfs, they should be the faster cars, so they're not really going to give them a yellow. And I also am or a blue, excuse me. And also the speed kind of varied, but once I got the idea and I see the point by there, I realized, okay, let's go ahead and get around them and keep on with my session. So coming up ahead of here again, we had another white flag, slow vehicle ahead, safety vehicle on track. You can see them kind of giving us the point by as to where they want us to go. This one also got a little bit interesting. You can't see it in my mirrors, but you can see that red surf go by. Again, not technically against the GCR, but it definitely got a little bit crowded coming through that section of the track there. Obviously I tried to stay as far to the left as I could, make sure I'm giving the safety truck, as much of a berth as possible so that they're not feeling squeezed by me. And he is a very experienced and quick surf driver, but it still caught me by surprise to have him kind of squeezed through there in a section where I just thought it was unnecessary. I never got the chance to speak to him or anything like that. But it seemed like an odd spot to go for a move there, especially on a slower class car where you're going to be able to get them coming up. So coming up here is where the very aptly named or aptly titled thumbnail gets its name. When you're learning the limits and learning what the car is going to do and how it's going to respond, really the only way to find the limit is to go beyond it. And as you can see here, I got in a little bit hot, a little bit offline. Car started to step out on me. Tried to catch it, got the counter steer into it, and just couldn't keep it going. Thankfully, I was able to control the spin, made sure I went off to the inside, locked it down, got the car fired. Obviously, corner workers saw that I was able to get it fired and keep rolling, so I just waited and watched for them to give me a point that I was clear to get back on track, and got back going. Obviously, first time spinning the car. In real life, I've spun the V in iRacing before plenty of times, but first time spinning in real life, it gets your heart rate up, gets you thinking, and it lets you know where that line is, and as long as you are being attentive to what the car is doing and how it's responding, it is a learning opportunity. I definitely thought that I was going to get dinged by the grading and by my mentor and by the stewards for that one, just because it is a spin. But it is also only the second session of the school, and ultimately they didn't. They looked at it, and from what I heard and what I interpreted, by managing it the way I did, by making sure I took the correct precautions and waited for the corner workers to give me a point that I was safe to continue, it actually goes in my favor in terms of decision making and safety and making sure I'm aware of the flag stations and what's going on around me. So coming through end of the session here, just letting the car cool back down, getting the heart rate back down, getting my wits collected. Coming through again, giving a wave to the flag stations, coming out a day early for a regional race, out there all day, lots of sessions, lots of track time, lots of, just simulated situations, waving the flags, taking care of us, making sure we're okay, making sure that they're giving us the flags that we need to see when we need to see them, spending their whole day out there at the racetrack with us for an extra day for a driver's school. Can't say thank you enough to them. As always, can't say thank you enough to my dad, Mark Richardson, my family, my girlfriend, everyone that has been supporting me through this. As I mentioned earlier in the video at the beginning, Brian Stachinski for having us out to crew for him last weekend at the Mark Amenda Majors. The whole goal with this and racing and getting into it is to obviously get my full competition license so that next year I can go out and race Mark Amendas, race June Sprints, race Cat Majors, and that's what I'm working towards. So we've got 4 weeks coming up. We'll be at Road America for June Sprints. I'll be doing my best to get some cameo shots and some videos from that, from a crew perspective. Unfortunately, I didn't get any from Mark Amendas, but life gets busy. Cars get hectic. Coming down pit here, I know both of these pit tech guys pretty well. It's always the same guys at the races, so I've gotten to talk to them and interact with them quite frequently as a crew member, and they recognize me and they know me in the car, so it's nice to see their support and their reactions at the end of the sessions. So once again, thank you for tuning in. Thanks for giving it a watch. If you like racing, if you want to follow the journey, give me a follow, give me a subscribe, give me a like, hit that bell at the bottom so that you get notified when videos get posted, and I will have the next video up very shortly.